Our next guest is from Slushpool, one of the sponsors of the Paralelní Polis, I keep saying it wrong, convention. Come on down.
Just want to speak right into the mic.
Yep. So tell us your name and what do you do at Slushpool?
Okay, so my name is Jan. I'm the CEO of Slushpool. And the place here is called Paralelní Polis.
Paralelní Polis.
Yeah, I always mess that up.
Now that I know it's Parallel City, it's easier for me to say in English. But
yeah, well, that's kind of the intention.
There it is. So what do you do at Slushpool? It's a mining pool?
Yeah, it's a primarily Bitcoin mining pool, but recently we started adding new cryptocurrencies. We now have Zcash support, and on the long run we're probably turning to something like a multi-pool. So, you know, it all started like a small garage project where Slush was building this concept of pooled mining, and when he was actually tired of doing it by his own, he invited me and Pavel, who is the CDO, to actually make it into something more professional, you know, to build the team, because we started getting questions from the miners, so we needed like real support. And I mean, with the last year's exchange rate, I mean, the amount of money that's being put into mining, into the mining equipment is huge, and basically all the miners are now big professional companies. So they deserve this kind of quality of service. So that's what we are trying to do. So initially from the small project running just on a few servers is now scaled globally in a few data centers and pretty much all the continents. We're not in Japan, I think, yet, in Africa. But I'm not sure if anybody's really mining in Africa. Would they get rid of the heat? So yeah. So this is it, and this has been my life for the past 4 years. So we got into this with Pavel in sometime in April 2013, I think.
Okay, and how does a mining pool work? Because I used to mine Dogecoin all by myself, and one time we got a block, but the rest of the time it didn't go that well. Can people just mine on their own, or do they need to mine in a pool?
Well, if they want to get some regular rewards, some tiny fractions, maybe just to summarize the whole concept is that Bitcoins or any similar cryptocurrencies are mined in quantities that are the rewards for each block of transactions. Currently the value of the block is 12.5 Bitcoin, which is a lot of money. And you are able to mine as many Bitcoins as big as your portion of the total network hash rate, or of the total computing power in the Bitcoin network. So right now, I think the total hash rate is about 6,000 or 7,000 petahash. It has been fluctuating lately because of miners switching to the Bitcoin Cash. I mean, so if you want to get some even reward, you can participate in a pool where you actually contribute with your mining power. And at that time, when the pool finds the block, which means some of the the thousands of the miners will find the golden nodes, which yields the good target and is the valid Bitcoin block.
Right.
We get the reward into our wallet and then split this reward among the miners, depending on how they participated in this round.
And you guys do give out the transaction fees as well, which some pools don't.
Yeah. This is something that we find normal. I mean, this is part of the mining reward, so we don't see a good reason. I mean, we take our commission on the whole reward.
Right, that was going to be my next question. How does Slushpool make money?
Yeah, so Slushpool makes money by taking commission, which is currently published. It's 2%. It has been like this from the very beginning. So 2%
of the total block
of the
reward
total
with
block
commission.
reward, right? And maybe it's a good information that some miners don't pay attention to. Is since we do merge mining of Namecoin, they're also getting fractions of Bitcoin added to their reward when we merge mine the Namecoins. So we take this whole amount, we take our commission, and then we split it among the miners. So if the block is 14.4 Bitcoin, they get 98% of that.
So mining Bitcoin is like buying lottery tickets, but if I'm just buying them by myself, I'm never going to win. But if I join a pool, we're mining maybe millions of lottery tickets, and we have a much better chance of winning, right?
Right. And
but the rewards would be small.
The reward is very small, but you get something. I mean, technically, if you're around with your equipment for long enough, you probably find a block once in a year. But the question is, if at that time the difficulty is that high that it actually lowers your probability. So that's just assuming that the difficulty of the network would stay on the same level. So for the miners to actually, not to entirely eliminate, but to at least reduce this variance in the reward is actually beneficial to mine like this. Yeah. Well,
but so I tried mining back in 2013, and I waited a long time for my Butterfly Labs machine to arrive. And when it finally did, it was probably worth about half what it should have been a few months previously. But then I saw a young man speak at a Bitcoin convention. You might have heard of him, Vitalik Buterin. He used to write for Bitcoin Magazine or something at the time. And he gave a speech that really struck to my head. It reminded me of something he said. Whenever you ship a miner for about a week or so, it loses half its value. So in his opinion, the minute you finish writing the chip for the miner, you need to take it across the street to your mining factory and plug it right in. Is that your experience on miners? Is it mainly done by larger factories, and do they still ship them to people? Does it just waste too much money?
I think the miners that we personally talk to, they usually arrange for ordering big batches of them.
Right, so thousands of miners?
Yes,
what the size we're talking about?
Right. Yeah. I don't know about any individuals really getting small amounts, but I'm actually one of the cases like you are. I own one Butterfly Labs machine, like 50 gigahash.
Sure.
At that time, I would say it wouldn't pay off, but I think it cost like $2,000. But on a long run, this machine actually made 1.5 Bitcoin. So in today's price, I made some money on that. But at that time, when Bitcoin dropped to $200, I would say, well, it's never going to.
I was able to sell my machine on eBay and recoup some of the costs later. So I did.
We still have it because we sometimes use it for testing. I mean, it's 50 gigahash, so it's able to complete some of the jobs that we give to miners.
Sure.
So I have one miner running at home. I have it's an Avalon miner. It's a 7 terahash miner. I do have it connected to Slushpool for the record. When I have it connected, I don't have it running 24/7. I'm not sure if it's ever going to pay off. It also took me a month to set up the miner because I traveled too much, and it actually wasn't simple. It was setting up your first miner is actually pretty damn challenging. I have videos about it. But my other question is, do you guys as a company, Slush, are you also mining on Slushpool, or is it just a service for other people and you are not participating as a corporation?
Oh, as of now, we don't own any mining equipment that would be worth connecting to the network.
So you don't have any?
No.
Okay, I see.
We really focus on running the whole operation, and we actually did a road trip this summer before the August.
So have it split,
and we wanted to talk to our big miners, and when we saw their operations, I mean, this is a different business. We are good at running the high availability systems to distribute the mining jobs properly, but I don't want to get into this business probably. It would be nice. We're being asked by our miners, when are you guys going to come with your own mining equipment branded with Slush? So that would be just, you can plug it in and connect it.
Sure.
Well, it all depends on the availability of the silicon, which we know what the current situation is. So, yeah.
I'll tell you, I don't want to be in the mining business either. Those things ran constantly in my house. They heated it during the summer, and they annoyed me when I tried to watch movies. So I've had enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, the home mining is a completely different thing, but the professional setups, they really built all the air conditioning path, and the airflow is really computed, and yeah,
I've heard of mining farms in Iceland using geothermal energy, using the outside air, just filtering it right in.
Yeah. One thing that I find very interesting is when we talk to the big players, they don't count in gigahashes, which is what we do because we care about the revenue. But they say, well, this is 1 megawatt. It's like, well, okay, it's 1 megawatt. But how much? What is the hashing cost, so that I can actually have an idea if it makes any money or not? I would say, well, we don't care because it all depends on the price of the electricity that we get, and yeah.
And now, do you hear any liquid-cooled miners, or is it mainly the air-cooled miners these days?
Well, we heard about them from them. They did some experiments, but the problem is that the cost of setting up liquid cooling in this scale is much higher and maintaining it than the simple airflow. So even though they're wasting some electrical energy on running the fans, the percentage, I don't know the exact numbers,
sure.
but let's say if they were running like 1 megawatt, it would be like tens or maybe up to 100 kilowatts wasted on the fans, which is not that significant.
Sure. And would they be set up in factories, or are they arriving in shipping containers? At one time, they floated the ideas of putting the miners in a shipping container, shipping them somewhere, plugging the box right in.
Oh, there are different setups, but generally big halls. Sometimes companies build like dedicated buildings when they think that the containers is not an ideal setup. It really depends also on the climate, on the weather conditions. Some areas are very dusty, so they have to do a lot of filtering of the air, and yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, I don't want to be in this business really. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your Slush's view on mining. So how do you guys view the mining of empty blocks? Like you're just getting a header and you're trusting another miner and potentially mining on that, but the outcome may be mining an empty block. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, generally, since the empty blocks are not congesting the blockchain in a real sense, I mean, they're not taking any significant space in all the copies of the database on all the nodes. I don't think it's really an issue. What would be an issue if because it actually takes time for the node to construct a new block template. So this is actually the reason why you start mining with an empty block. In the meantime, while the node is computing the new template, this is the safe way that we do it. I mean, technically, you could have something cached and try to build it on your software, but you want to trust the code base that's running in the node. So I personally, and we generally look at it that from mining point of view, this doesn't bring any bad effects. If what you're trying to hit here is the ASIC boost optimization, which you can do with empty blocks, well, that's a different story. But
well, I wasn't going towards ASIC boost,
okay.
But what are you, since it's brought up, what are your views on ASIC boost? Because we can talk about mining with ASIC boost. I was just talking about mining empty blocks, without ASIC boost.
Yeah.
But
okay.
What are your general views on ASIC boost and the way that whole discussion went down about 6 months ago?
Well, if we say that ASIC boost is sort of a flaw in how the blocks are designed, that they actually allow to do something like this, well, if this thing is available to, or if it was available to every miner, I would not necessarily find it bad. But the problem is actually if somebody would have the advantage. It's sort of, but it's on the other hand, it is difficult to really prove that somebody is misusing it.
Right. So you do feel that using ASIC boost is a bit of a misuse because it's not something that's widely used by everyone.
Yeah, and it is not being used by everyone because the technology is not open and it's not available.
All right, so let's put the ASIC boost aside,
okay.
And as you mentioned, so you guys don't see an issue trusting other miners and potentially mining empty blocks. I actually wasn't sure. I know Bitfury never does that. They have made a commitment not to do it, but right now I'm looking at blocks being mined today, and I do see Slush mining a block within in less than a second after Antpool mined the block, and the amount of data inside that block is pretty much nothing, surrounded by a full megabyte block. So would this be an example of mining an empty block on top of somebody else's header?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just curious. So I actually am trying to gauge which miners are okay with that and which miners aren't.
We're okay with that. Well, the way it works is that once a new block is found, we immediately distribute a new work for all the miners with this empty block. And in the meantime, the node is computing the new template, and once the template is available, we refresh the job. And I hope I'm saying this right, if it's in line with what Pavel would explain. Once the new template is constructed in the mining nodes, we just distributed the new job right away. So and this was the coincidence where actually somebody found the block. Well, what can you do?
Right. Well, again, I'm not personally, I'm not very happy with because the mempool's full. I would like to get it set. I'm not happy about that, but I usually only call out miners for being hypocrites when those miners were against segregated witness and they want bigger blocks, yet at the same time they're mining empty blocks.
Okay.
So that's been my biggest criticism. So I've been very critical of Antpool and Via and some of the other ones in that regard.
Well, we always try to give the miners the voting right to choose.
So what do you think the future is? Where do you think this is headed? Do you think it will be more pools, less pools? Do you think everything will, do you think there is centralization in China? It's going to get worse, better? What's your outlook for the future of mining and pools in particular?
Well, the future in China is, it's really hard to say what is being lost in translation and what is really the truth. My personal perception is that I really have no idea if the Chinese government is eventually going to step into the mining, and because this is their main concern. What I heard from many people is the export of the capital. China has some restrictions, right? And up till now, it was possible to do this through the exchanges and through the cryptocurrencies, and they started regulating this. So once they focused on the exchanges, they still see that probably the capital is flowing out of the country, which is not in line what they want. Right. And if they focus on the mining, that would be another channel. So yeah, I mean, I'm not very familiar with that environment in China. Well, our operation in China is present, but is small. So, I mean, it's really hard to judge. Nobody from our office is a native speaker in Chinese that will research their forums. So we only get this information indirectly. It's always nice to talk in the conferences to somebody who is native and can describe the situation. Yeah.
So now, what about a 51% attack? I've heard if someone gets 51% of the Bitcoin network, they could maybe change the direction, start their own chain. How much percentage does Slushpool have, and do you think 51% attacks would be a problem?
Well, I think right now we're around 6%.
5-6%. You guys used to be a lot bigger.
But
what happened?
It was in the early times where there were, I mean, not so many pools, and the competition was not so big, and actually all the big manufacturers started pretty much their own pool mining. So for their customers, sometimes there's not enough motivation to switch over to Slushpool unless they want to do some political act like voting for SegWit or something like that. And since primary motivation of most miners is the money, that's why they sometimes do it, or most of the time they do it.
Sure.
I mean, there's no point of messing with the setup that they're provided with the manufacturer. So I mean, that's why it would be nice if we ever had.
So now you only have 5 to 6%,
Yeah.
so that's not really a threat for 51.
No, we're not.
I've heard on Bcash that there's an unknown miner mining 91%, I don't know the exact number right now, of the chain. Do you think that's a potential for a 51% attack? Do you think that's a safe way to run a network?
It's currently at, it's dropped. It's currently at about 40% of an unknown miner. But at certain times, when there's not much difficulty, it does go up to like 60, 70%.
Yeah, when the emergency difficulty adjustment algorithm kicks in, then things start changing. Yeah, I mean, how the BCH network is going to behave, I think it's probably in the stars and up to the developers what they're going to do with that.
Where on Bitcoin, all the miners are signaling, so we can tell if a certain miner was getting too high. I don't remember the name, but some miner got very close.
Ghash.
Yeah, and the market just punished them after.
Yeah, they were gone. They were gone real quick.
Because it was a pool, people started leaving that pool to actually balance things out. And on the other hand, sometimes, even though we signal who is mining which block, I mean, sometimes there could be a provider actually mining blocks with different identities just to cover all these. So it is hard to say. But from Satoshi's paper, if there was this 51% attack, I think the miners should not try to destroy the network because they would lose their holdings.
Now, speaking of destroying the network, moving on to the next fork of SegWit 2x, does Slushpool plan to stop mining Bitcoin and start mining SegWit 2x coin?
It's actually a very intensive discussion in the company right now. Well, with the BCH, we just decided for political reasons we are not going to support this unless it becomes one day a main chain. But since it didn't happen, I mean, it's not a concern for us right now. But with the SegWit 2x, I think we should be somehow ready to reflect the thing. But I still don't think, at least that's the indication that we have from the big miners, that they pretty much don't want to do the NYA agreement because of this split that's already present in there.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And do you have a general, do you have the knowledge of, let's say, geographical distribution of the miners of your pool? And is that something that is publicly available, or is that something you can share?
Actually, yeah, it is available. If you go to the stats page and if you scroll down, there is a chart in there showing different machines with the hash power, and you can see what's in the States, what's in the Europe. And yeah, if you go to...
Oh, I'm logged out. I don't know my own password. Do you go here?
Just click on Pool Stats,
and where are we going?
Stats.
System Stats.
Yeah. Do the users see that or not? Okay, so this is the summary hash rate. But if you scroll down even further, these lines, if you put your cursor over that, it actually says the distribution.
Based on continent.
Yeah. Well,
so you have China, Europe, Singapore. Really?
Yeah, there's Singapore.
Wow. And U.S.
And the U.S. Yeah.
So is this where the miners are located, or are those just like the?
Well, we're assuming that the miners are selecting their closest geographical location for getting the jobs, so that they
it's
they
faster
have very low
for propagation, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to attack this chart, you would mine from China to U.S., but I think there's no point to do that.
It looks like way more petahash, way more in the U.S. I mean, I'm looking at this and.
That's like
is this
250 is the euro.
So right, so you're looking at 15 petahash for China versus 250 for Europe, and the US is actually less than Europe. So it looks like Europe is your biggest.
Well, the US you have 3 locations, so
right, but they. It's 300 for the US. Yeah, so it's US, Europe close second, and China is on par with Singapore. Yep. So that seems a little strange to me I guess not many from China want to connect to Slushpool, perhaps. They're all Ant Pool or F2 Pool.
Well, first, we're not good at marketing in China. We're learning that, and it's really hard to enter it. I think we just have to do a physical trip over there and talk to people. And I think just most of the hashing power is sold by Antipool, or by Bitmain, and they have no motivation switching over. So, I mean,
it's like when Microsoft would only install Internet Explorer. They're just not going to add Firefox.
Yeah. I'm assuming that this 10 petahash from China, or how much it is?
About 15.
15, okay. Is the miners who are politically convinced that initially they wanted to vote for SegWit, so they were connected to us, and now they want to stay there.
All right, and Slushpool is based out of the Czech Republic, and you guys are sponsoring the conference here?
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we feel it's important to support these events, and we actually did the same thing last year, and but the event has grown much bigger now, so it needs more sponsors.
Absolutely, they talk about renting an even bigger space next year,
yeah, there's
even more attendees. Yeah, the Bitcoin space just getting bigger and bigger. So unless Tone has more questions?
No, I'm good. It's actually 8 o'clock. Yeah, go ahead, Joseph. You have a question?
I have a question regarding GMO's 7 nanometer news coming out saying that they may have it next year in May. What's the chance that actually really is coming out? If it does, how's that going to impact all the existing machines running at 14 or 16 nanometer?
I'm assuming it would be like 30–40% more efficient if they pull off this technology. But what I'm wondering about is what is the actual foundry doing it for them? There are not too many foundries in the world. If you download the Intel's latest presentations on this topic, you will see that the number of foundries being able to keep up with the technology is still shrinking the nanometers. It's also shrinking the number of companies being able to do that. We actually tried contacting them because we would like, if the numbers are true, what they're actually publishing, we would like for them to operate nodes in Japan, but we didn't get the answer. So if anybody from GMO is watching, just talk to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and just one final question. So any ETA on when you guys might make a decision about the New York agreement and which way you're going to lean? Do you have a deadline for that? Do you want to decide by end of month, or
well, yeah,
you have meetings coming up sooner?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be sure about this by the end of the month. But for us, the least work would be if it worked like the same way as BCH. Basically, nobody would care pretty much in this space. But yeah, as you guys said, if the Bitcoin.com is going to up with the ticker for the SegWit 2x, there's going to be a lot of confusion among people. So.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. And
thank you.
Another Czech company is Trezor. So we'd like to offer you from cryptohwwallet.com a leather case for your Trezor. We give you the impossible choice of brown or black.
I would go for the black one.
Okay, excellent choice. That's like
what
Henry Ford said. You can have any color you like as long as it's black.
We'll do a picture.
I'm your biggest distributor, actually. For Trezor, I thought I sold more than 10,000 units already, at least.
Okay, well that's Satoshi Labs. Pool is run by a different company, but yeah, but it's the unifying person is Slash who started Trezor and Pool.
Okay.
So
very cool.
That's the whole story.
Actually, take one for Slash too.
Well, he'll be here. We're hoping to catch him tomorrow. Okay. Is he supposed to be here tomorrow?
I think so. I think
so.
All
right, we'll catch him tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll try and interview him as well.
Okay.
All right. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for coming on.
And thanks to everybody at home for watching. Be sure to give us a like and a subscribe if it's your first time here. And we'll be back tomorrow with more interviews live from Paralellopolis. Parallel City. I might have got. Oh, I got it that time. I had it written in front of me. I cheated. But thanks so much, and we'll be back tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. It didn't work. It's not stopping. Ryan, are you stopping?